My name is Amara Ellison, 32 years old, a single mother navigating the jagged edges of life in San Francisco's unforgiving hustle. I thought I'd armored myself against my family's indifference, their casual dismissal of my existence, but nothing could have prepared me for the night they turned my daughter's innocence into a cruel jest. Instead, it became the night I shed my silence and began to rewrite my place in a world that had long tried to erase me. The invitation arrived on a gray Tuesday, nestled among overdue bills and pizza coupons in the dented mailbox of our cramped apartment. It was a thing of beauty, thick cream cardstock, gold foil embossing, the kind of stationery that whispered wealth and exclusivity before you even opened it. You are cordially invited to celebrate Livia Ellison's promotion to Director of Product at Nexus Innovations, it proclaimed, the words gleaming with promise. Below, in smaller, almost apologetic print, Amara Ellison, and town guest. My name, correct for once, but stripped of warmth, a begrudging acknowledgement of my existence. I stood in our tiny kitchen, the fluorescent light flickering above, and felt the familiar sting of being an afterthought. My daughter, Nora, 7 and radiant, was sprawled on the living room rug, humming as she glued sequins to a handmade card for her aunt. I slid the envelope behind a box of off-brand cereal before she could see it, my hands trembling with a mix of dread and resignation. Livia and I were once inseparable, two girls growing up in Oakland's working-class sprawl, our dreams bigger than the peeling paint of our childhood home. Our parents, a nurse mother, Celeste, who worked double shifts, and a mechanic father, Roy, who smelled of motor oil, poured their hopes into us. Livia was the star, her charisma lighting up rooms, her ambition a beacon teachers and neighbors couldn't ignore. I was the shadow, the one who bandaged her skinned knees, proofread her essays, and stayed up late typing her college applications while she charmed her way through parties. When she won a scholarship to Stanford, I drove her to campus in my rattling '98 Honda, my heart swelling with pride as she waved from the dorm steps. But as her star rose internships at Silicon Valley giants, a TEDx talk that went viral, a string of startup successes, mine dimmed. I became a single mother at 24, juggling Nora's needs and a part-time data entry job that barely covered rent. To Livia, I was a cautionary tale, the sister who chose struggle over greatness. The invitation wasn't unexpected, but it cut deep. Livia's events were performances, meticulously staged to dazzle her network and cement her status as a tech wunderkind. I'd attended one before, 3 years ago, for her promotion to senior manager. My name was missing from the guest list then, and I'd stood awkwardly by the dessert table as Celeste toasted to Livia's escape from our family's ordinary roots. The laughter from her colleagues had clung to me like damp smoke, a reminder of my place. I'd vowed never to go back, but Nora changed everything. Mom, is this for Aunt Livia's big party? Nora asked the next morning, her small fingers clutching the RSVP card I'd foolishly left on the counter. Her braids were lopsided, her gap-toothed grin wide with excitement. Can we bring her my card and frame? I made them sparkly. My heart sank, memories of past slights flashing like warning signs. Celeste's barbed toasts, Livia's dismissive glances, the way they made me feel like a guest in my own family. But Nora didn't know that pain. To her, Livia was a glamorous aunt, a superhero in heels who lived in a world of glass towers and TED Talks. Denying her would dim the light in her eyes, and I couldn't bear that. Sure, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile as I brushed crumbs from her cheek. We'll go, and we'll bring your gift. Her squeal of delight was a balm, but it didn't erase the dread pooling in my chest. That night, after Nora fell asleep in a nest of stuffed animals, I received a text from Celeste. This is her milestone. Be supportive and don't drag up old grudges. No greeting. To swallow my pain for Livia's spotlight, I stared at the screen, my chest tight with the ache of being unseen. I wanted to fire back, to ask why she never stood up for me, why my efforts were always invisible. Instead, I deleted the message and turned off my phone. I pulled my only formal dress from the closet, a navy sheath with a frayed hem I'd mended with clumsy stitches. It was plain, unremarkable, designed to blend into the background, much like me at Livia's events. As I ironed it, my hands shook, not from nerves, but from the effort of burying a stubborn hope that this time might be different. Maybe someone would see me, really see me, and say, "I'm glad you're here." In the bathroom, with Nora's soft snores drifting through the thin walls, I let myself cry. The tears were silent, burning with the weight of years spent longing for a family that didn't want me back. I dried my face, reapplied mascara, and whispered to my reflection, "You're going for Nora, not them." But deep down, a small, fragile part of me still yearned for a place at their table. The next day, Nora and I baked sugar cookies, her favorite, dusting them with rainbow sprinkles. She insisted on packing them in a tin she'd decorated with dinosaur stickers, her small hands meticulous as she arranged each one. "Aunt Livia's gonna love these," she said, her voice bright with certainty. I nodded, swallowing the doubt that they'd likely end up ignored on a table of artisanal desserts. As we loaded the car, I caught my reflection in the rear-view mirror, hair pulled back, lipstick fading, eyes puffy from sleepless nights. "You're not here to be loved," I whispered to myself. "You're here to be kind to her." But the truth was, I still wanted to be seen, to matter, even if just for a moment. The evening of Livia's promotion party was a study in contrasts. San Francisco's damp fog curling around the city's edges, and Nora's uncontainable excitement lighting up our beat-up sedan. She wore her favorite purple dress, its tulle skirt flaring as she practiced spins in the back seat. Her handmade gift, a sequined picture frame and a card adorned with glittery hearts clutched tightly. "It's for Aunt Livia's new office," she said, her voice bubbling with pride. "She'll put it on her desk. Right, Mom?" I forced a smile, my stomach twisting as we navigated the crowded streets toward the venue. A rooftop lounge perched atop a glass tower overlooking the Bay Bridge. "I bet she'll love it," I said, but the words felt hollow, shadowed by memories of past rejections. The venue was a vision of opulence, a world apart from our modest life. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls framed the city's twinkling skyline, fairy lights draped like constellations, and a jazz trio played a sultry cover of "Fly Me to the Moon." Golden balloon arches flanked a stage where a massive screen looped images of Livia's career. Keynote speeches, team retreats, a Forbes 30 Under 30 feature. Guests in tailored blazers and shimmering dresses mingled, their laughter sharp against the clink of champagne flutes. Nora's eyes widened, her gasp echoing my own awe. "Mom, it's like a castle in the sky." I adjusted her cardigan, my heart heavy. "It's fancy, huh, kiddo?" At the check-in table, a staffer with a sleek tablet barely glanced up. "Name?" she asked, her tone clipped. "Amara Ellison," I said, bracing myself. She scrolled, her brow furrowing. "You're not on the list." The words hit like a slap, the familiar burn of exclusion flaring in my chest. "There's a mistake," I said, keeping my voice steady for Nora, who clutched her gift tighter. After a tense pause, the staffer sighed, tapping her screen. "Table 15, back corner," she muttered, pointing to a dim walkway near the service entrance. I nodded, guiding Nora forward, my jaw tight as I swallowed the humiliation. Table 15 was a stark contrast to the elegance around us, a wobbly folding table tucked behind a catering cart and a stack of spare chairs. The other tables, adorned with gold centerpieces and linen napkins, buzzed with Livia's colleagues, mentors, and friends. Ours held a lighting vendor, a bored intern scrolling TikTok, and a distant cousin who didn't recognize me. "You with the catering crew?" the intern asked, eyeing my plain dress. "No," I said, My smile strained. I'm Livia's sister. He shrugged, uninterested, and returned to his phone. I pulled out a chair for Nora, her small frame dwarfed by the setting, and helped her set her gift on the table. The sequins caught the dim light, a flicker of hope in a sea of indifference. Nora's fingers lingered on the frame, her voice soft. When can I give this to Aunt Livia? I scanned the room, spotting Livia at the center, radiant in a crimson dress that shimmered like liquid fire. She was surrounded by admirers, her laughter a melody that drew every eye. Soon, baby, I said, my throat tight. When Livia finally noticed us, her smile faltered, then stretched into something performative. Amara, you actually came, she said, her voice cool, her eyes flicking over my dress with a hint of disdain. Didn't think you'd bother. Before I could respond, she turned to Nora, her tone shifting to saccharine. Hey, cutie. Still into crafts? Nora nodded, her face lighting up as she held out her gift. I made this for your new office. It's you in a power suit. Livia's smile tightened, her eyes barely grazing the frame. That's sweet. Nora, she said, not reaching for it. But my office is minimalist clean lines. No clutter. Maybe your mom can keep it for you. She patted Nora's head, a dismissive gesture, and turned back to a colleague, a woman in a silk jumpsuit who stifled a laugh. Nora's shoulders slumped, her hands clutching the frame as she shuffled back to me. Did I do it wrong? Mom, she asked, her voice trembling. I knelt beside her, my heart splintering. No, sweetheart, I whispered, brushing a braid from her face. You did everything right. It's perfect. Just like you. I pulled her close, shielding her from the room's cold indifference. But the sting of Livia's rejection burned. The program began, the MC's voice booming as the screen flashed Livia's achievements conferences in Singapore. A startup launch that raised millions, a glossy headshot beside the words, visionary leader. The crowd applauded, their admiration a wall I couldn't breach. Then Livia took the stage, her champagne flute gleaming under the lights. I want to thank my team, my mentors, and… She paused, her eyes locking onto mine, a smirk curling her lips. My sister, Amara, the strongest single mom. I know, proof you can survive anything, even failure. Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel, slicing through the air. Some guests hesitated, their smiles uneasy, but others leaned into it, their amusement a blade to my chest. Nora's eyes widened, confusion clouding her face. Why are they laughing at you? Mom, she whispered, her voice breaking. I couldn't speak, my hands frozen around my water glass, the condensation slick against my palm. Then Celeste's voice cut through from a front table, her tone dripping with mockery. To Amara, our family's reminder to aim higher. The laughter swelled, louder now, a chorus of complicity that pinned me to my seat. Nora's lip trembled, and she buried her face in my arm, her small body shaking. I sat still, my jaw clenched, willing myself not to cry, not to give them the satisfaction. Livia moved on, toasting her triumphs, while I remained at table 15, invisible except as a punchline. But as the laughter faded, I noticed someone watching Marcus Reed, Livia's CEO, a man in his 50s with a quiet intensity that set him apart from the polished crowd. His gaze wasn't mocking or pitying. It was steady, almost searching, as if he saw something the others didn't. I didn't know it then, but that look was the first thread in a tapestry that would unravel the night's cruel narrative. The party surged forward, a glittering tide of self-congratulation. Livia floated through the crowd, her crimson dress a beacon, her laughter a siren call that kept every eye on her. Celeste held court at a front table, her voice rising over the jazz trio as she spun tales of Livia's brilliance, her Stanford days, her first pitch that secured venture capital, her rise to tech royalty. I sat at table 15, my frayed dress hidden beneath the cheap tablecloth. Nora's small hand gripping mine like a lifeline. The sting of their mockery burned, a fresh wound layered over years of slights. But I stayed for Nora. I wouldn't let her learn that kindness deserved shame, that love could be laughed at. The air shifted when Marcus Reed, Livia's CEO, stepped to the microphone. The room quieted. Champagne flutes pausing mid-clink. The jazz trio fading to a soft hum. Marcus was an imposing figure. Tall, his gray suit crisp, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. Tonight, we celebrate Livia's ascent. He began, his eyes sweeping the crowd, lingering on the executives, the investors, the influencers. But I want to talk about the unsung, the ones who build the foundations others claim. My breath caught as his gaze settled on me, deliberate and unflinching. "There's someone here who's been overlooked," he said, his voice steady. Amara Ellison, Livia's sister, who a decade ago helped craft the pitch that opened Nexus's doors for her. Amara, who's raised a daughter with grace under pressures most of us would crumble beneath. Her contributions aren't in our slideshow, but they're the bedrock of this success. The room stilled, the air thick with surprise. Livia's smile froze, her flute lowering slightly, her poise cracking at the edges. Celeste's laughter died, her face paling as guests turned to look at me, some with curiosity, others with discomfort. Marcus continued, his words measured but piercing. Success isn't just about who climbs highest. It's about who lifts others along the way. Amara, your resilience, your quiet strength, deserves recognition. Applause broke out, tentative at first, then swelling into something genuine, warm. Unlike the performative claps for Livia, Nora's eyes brightened, her grip on my hand loosening. "That's you, Mom," she whispered, her voice trembling with pride, my throat tight, the weight of being seen, truly seen, pressing against my chest. Before the moment could settle, another voice rose. Priya, a junior analyst in her mid-20s, stood near the back, her hands trembling but her posture resolute. "I need to say something," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Last year, I was drowning in burnout, ready to quit. Amara didn't work here, but she noticed me struggling at a company event. She sent me resources, checked in, even dropped off coffee when I was too overwhelmed to ask for help. She saved me, and I've never thanked her properly." Priya's eyes met mine, fierce with gratitude. "Thank you, Amara. You're the reason I'm still here." The applause grew, a wave of warmth that washed over table 15. For the first time that night, I felt not just seen but valued, not as a failure, but as someone whose quiet acts had rippled outward. Livia's expression hardened, her fingers tightening around her glass until her knuckles whitened. Celeste looked away, her pearls glinting as she fidgeted, her usual confidence unraveling. The room had shifted, and they were no longer its architects. As the applause faded, Marcus approached our table, his presence quiet but commanding. "Can we talk?" "Amara," his voice low. I glanced at Nora, who nodded, her sequined frame clutched tightly. "I'll be right back." "Baby," I said, following Marcus to a quiet corner of the rooftop. The city sparkled below, the Bay Bridge, a ribbon of light against the dark water. My heart pounded, a mix of gratitude and disbelief swirling inside me. Marcus handed me a small envelope. Nora left her gift on the main table. I didn't want it to be overlooked. Inside was her frame, slightly crumpled but intact, with her drawing of Livia in a power suit. Glitter smudged but radiant. Tucked behind it was a folded letter on thick paper. My hands trembled as I opened it, a formal offer from a community tech initiative Marcus advised, seeking a program coordinator to empower underrepresented voices in STEM. "We need people who know resilience," he said, his eyes steady. "That's you." I stared at the letter, the words blurring as the weight of the moment sank in. Nora's gift, mocked just hours ago, now carried the promise of a new beginning. Why me? I asked. Marcus's expression softened, a rare warmth breaking through his stoic demeanor. Because you've been building quietly while others took the stage. You don't just survive. Amara, you create. That's the leadership we need. As we returned to the ballroom, I noticed the slideshow had changed. A new image flickered on the screen, a grainy photo from 10 years ago. Me and Livia in our parents' cluttered garage. Me holding a whiteboard marker as she rehearsed her first Nexus pitch. I'd printed the slides, coached her through stumbles, stayed up until dawn to perfect her delivery. In the original photo, we'd been side by side, but Livia had always cropped me out. Now, I was there, unedited. The caption reading, "The unseen start." Guests murmured, some nodding with respect, others glancing at me with curiosity. Livia stood rigid, her smile gone, her eyes darting as if searching for a way to reclaim the narrative. Celeste's face was a mask of discomfort, her hands twisting in her lap. I rejoined Nora, who leapt into my arms, her frame pressed against my chest. "You're a hero, Mom," she said, her voice muffled. I held her close, the letter and frame in my hand, and felt a seismic shift, not loud, but profound. I hadn't shouted or stormed out. I'd stayed, and in that stillness, the truth had found its voice. For the first time, I believed I was enough, not just for Nora, but for myself. The party wound down, dessert trays weaving through the crowd as the jazz trio softened to a melancholic hum. The air was different now, charged with the aftershocks of Marcus's speech and Priya's courage. Guests stole glances at me, some offering tentative smiles, others whispering as they recalibrated their view of Livia's triumph. I sat at table 15, Nora coloring on a napkin with a borrowed crayon, her sequined frame and the job offer tucked safely in my bag, to escape the gilded cage of my family's cruelty. But Livia wasn't done with me yet. She approached our table, her crimson dress catching the fairy lights, her smile a brittle mask that barely concealed her fury. "Amara, we need to talk," she said, her voice syrupy but laced with venom. I nodded, wary, and followed her to a quiet alcove near the bar, keeping Nora in my sightline as she doodled, oblivious to the storm brewing. Livia's heels clicked sharply against the polished floor, each step a declaration of control she was desperate to reclaim. As soon as we were out of earshot, her composure shattered. "What was that stunt with Marcus?" she hissed, her eyes blazing. "You think you can hijack my night with your pathetic sob story?" Her words were a whip, meant to sting, but I stood taller, meeting her gaze. "I didn't ask for any of this," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Marcus told the truth. Priya did too. If that threatens you, that's not my problem." Livia laughed, a cold, bitter sound that echoed in the alcove. "Truth. You're just the sister who never made it. Amara, clinging to scraps of relevance, playing the martyr. You helped me once. Fine, but don't act like you're some unsung hero. You chose this life, single mom, dead-end job, scraping by. Don't blame me for shining brighter." Her words cut deep, reopening wounds I'd spent years bandaging. But they didn't break me, not anymore. "I didn't choose struggle," I said, my voice steady, each word deliberate. "I chose Nora. I chose integrity, showing up for people without expecting a spotlight. You chose applause, Livia, even if it meant stepping on me to get it. That's the difference between us." She blinked, her mask slipping, a flicker of doubt crossing her face. For a moment, I saw the sister I'd once known, the one who'd cried in my arms when she failed her first college exam, who'd promised we'd conquer the world together. But that girl was gone, buried under layers of ambition and envy. Before she could retort, Marcus appeared, his presence a quiet anchor in the storm. "Everything all right?" he asked, his eyes flicking between us, his tone neutral but pointed. Livia's jaw tightened, her voice sharp. "Fine, Marcus. Just a family matter." He raised an eyebrow, unswayed, Amara, I meant what I said about the offer. It's real. Think about it. He handed me his business card, the embossed letters catching the light, then walked away, leaving Livia fuming. She turned back to me, her hands clenched, her voice low and venomous. You'll always be the pity case. Amara, enjoy your little moment. It won't last. People like you don't belong in rooms like this. Her words were meant to wound, to shrink me back to the margins, but they felt hollow, the tantrum of someone losing control. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I turned and walked back to Nora, who looked up with a grin, her napkin now a riot of crayon stars. Ready to go. Mom, her voice a beacon in the chaos. I nodded, gathering our things, the frame, the offer, the tin of cookies Nora had insisted on bringing. As we headed for the exit, I passed Celeste, her face a mix of guilt and defiance, her pearls glinting under the lights. You didn't have to ruin her night, she said, her voice low, almost pleading. I stopped, meeting her gaze, my voice steady. I didn't ruin anything. Mom, I just stopped letting you erase me. If that feels like a threat, maybe you should ask why. Her lips parted, but no words came. For the first time, I saw a crack in her armor, a flicker of doubt, perhaps regret. In her eyes, I took Nora's hand and walked out, the city's lights stretching before us like a canvas of possibilities. In the car, Nora fell asleep, her frame clutched tightly, the dinosaur-stickered cookie tin balanced on her lap. I glanced at Marcus's card, the job offer burning in my mind. Livia's words echoed, but they were drowned out by a quieter truth. I wasn't the pity case. I was the one who'd endured, who'd built a life from love and grit, and I was done apologizing for it. As we drove through the foggy streets, the Bay Bridge, a faint glow in the distance, I whispered to myself, this isn't the end. It's where we start. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, I felt ready to claim it, not for Livia, not for Celeste, but for Nora and me. The days after Livia's party were a quiet reckoning, a shedding of the weight I'd carried for years. No calls came from Livia or Celeste, and for the first time, their silence felt like freedom, not rejection. I placed Nora's sequined frame on our living room shelf, its glitter catching the morning sun like a defiant spark. It wasn't just a child's craft, it was proof of her heart, and then mine, unbroken by cruelty. The job offer from Marcus's nonprofit sat on my kitchen counter, next to a stack of bills and Nora's latest drawing, a tangible reminder that my worth didn't depend on my family's validation. I met Marcus a week later at a coffee shop in the Mission District, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and baristas who knew your order by heart. Nora was at school, her backpack stuffed with the cookie tin she'd insisted on sharing with her class. My nerves jangled as I walked in, the folder with the job offer tucked under my arm. Marcus was already there, his suit traded for a navy sweater, his demeanor relaxed but focused. I'm serious about the role, he said, sliding a detailed proposal across the table. It's a pilot program to mentor women in tech from underserved communities, coding boot camps, career coaching, community building. You'd be the coordinator, shaping it from the ground up. I traced the folder's edge, doubt creeping in like an old habit. I'm not like Livia, I said, my voice low. I'm not a leader who commands rooms. I've just been getting by. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes kind but unwavering. Getting by is leadership. Amara, you've raised a daughter alone, supported others without expecting credit, kept going when most would have given up. That's not just resilience. That's the kind of strength that changes lives. We need you. His words landed like a key turning in a lock, reframing years of struggle as something powerful, purposeful. I thought of Nora, her glittery frame, the way she'd looked at me after Marcus's speech, her eyes full of pride. This wasn't just about me. It was about showing her that kindness and grit could open doors no one could shut. I'll think about it, I said, but the spark in my chest told me I'd already decided. I took the folder, my hands steady, and thanked him, my voice thick with gratitude. Back home, I started small, building a foundation for this new chapter. I enrolled in an online project management course, spending nights studying after Nora's bedtime stories, my laptop glowing in the dark. I reached out to Priya, who invited me to a Women in Tech meetup in Soma. The room was filled with women like me, mothers, immigrants, first-generation coders who'd been overlooked but never stopped pushing. Their stories, raw and real, fueled me. One woman, a single mom who'd taught herself Python between night shifts, gripped my hand and said, "You're not alone. We see you." For the first time, I felt part of something bigger, a community that valued me for who I was, not who I wasn't. One evening, as I helped Nora with her math homework, she looked up, her pencil pausing. "Are you going to be a boss like Aunt Livia?" I smiled, tucking a braid behind her ear. "Not like her," I said. "I'm going to be a boss who lifts people up, like you do with your glitter frames and cookies." She grinned, satisfied, and returned to her fractions, her confidence a mirror to the strength I was rediscovering. A month later, I accepted the job. My first day was a whirlwind introductions, a cluttered office, a team of eager but nervous interns looking to me for direction. I stood in the conference room, outlining our first mentorship workshop, my voice steady despite the butterflies in my stomach. I wasn't Livia, commanding with charisma, but I was Amara Real, grounded, someone who knew what it meant to fight for every step. The interns nodded, their trust a quiet validation, and I felt a spark I hadn't known was there. Livia sent a single text weeks later. "Congrats on the job. Didn't see that coming." The words were laced with her usual condescension, but they held no power. I didn't reply. Her approval, once a lifeline, was now irrelevant. Celeste called once, her voice tentative, hinting at reconciliation. "I'm busy," I said, cutting the call short. I was building a life where their validation wasn't currency, where my worth was mine to define. One spring morning, Nora and I walked to a park near our apartment, the Bay Bridge gleaming under a clear sky. She ran ahead, her laughter echoing as she chased a butterfly, while I carried a picnic basket and a piece I'd fought tooth and nail for. The scars of that night, Livia's cruelty, Celeste's complicity remained, but they no longer defined me. I was writing a new story, one where Nora and I were enough, where our love and resilience outshone any spotlight. As we spread a blanket under a cherry blossom tree, petals drifting like soft confetti, Nora handed me a new drawing stick figures of us holding hands under a rainbow, a tiny glitter frame sketched around it. "This is for our team," she said, her eyes bright. I hugged her close, the job offer and her original frame vivid in my mind, and whispered, "It's perfect. Baby, just like us." The park hummed with life children laughing, dogs barking, the city alive around us, and I knew we'd found our place, not in Livia's world, but in one we'd built together. 6 months into my new role, life felt like a tentative melody, each note carefully played but growing bolder. The mentorship program was gaining traction, with our first cohort of women, single mothers, immigrants, community college students learning to code and landing internships. My inbox buzzed with thank yous, my office cluttered with sticky notes and Nora's drawings. At home, Nora thrived, her school projects brimming with confidence, her glitter frames a staple on our walls. But the past, like a stubborn fog, had a way of creeping back. It started with an email, arriving on a rainy November evening as I sipped tea after Nora's bedtime. The sender was unfamiliar. Ken Vaughn. The subject line read, "We need to talk." My pulse quickened, a familiar dread stirring. I opened it, expecting Livia, but the name threw me. Kara Vaughn, a former colleague of Livia's from her early Nexus days. "Amara," the email began, I was at Livia's promotion party. I saw what happened, and I owe you an explanation. Meet me at Blue Bottle Coffee on Polk Street, Saturday at 10 a. Miguel Mae. I'll be in a green coat. Kara. The email was cryptic, but it stirred memories of that night. The laughter, Marcus's speech, Livia's venom. Who was Kara? And why now? I debated ignoring it, protecting the fragile peace I'd built. But curiosity, or perhaps a need to understand the full scope of that night, won out. I confided in Priya over lunch, her eyes narrowing as I showed her the email. It could be closure, she said, stirring her latte, or it could be drama. Go, but keep your guard up. Her pragmatism steadied me, and I decided to meet Kara, if only to silence the questions gnawing at me. Saturday morning, I left Nora with a neighbor and arrived at Blue Bottle early. The cafe's warmth, a contrast to the drizzle outside. Kara was already there, a woman in her late 30s with sharp cheekbones and a green coat draped over her chair. She stood as I approached, her handshake firm but her eyes nervous. Amara, thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to the seat across from her. I'm Kara. I worked with Livia when she started at Nexus. Her story was a revelation that cracked open the past. Kara had been Livia's mentor, a senior analyst who'd guided her through her first projects. I was in the room when you helped her with that pitch, Kara said, her voice low. You weren't just a sister, you were a strategist, refining her ideas, making her shine. But Livia never credited you. She told everyone it was her work. My chest tightened. The betrayal, a fresh wound. Kara continued, revealing a secret that hit like a thunderbolt. Livia had sabotaged Kara's own promotion years ago, leaking her work to a rival team to secure her own rise. When I saw her mock you at the party, Kara said, I realized she hadn't changed. I stayed silent too long. Kara slid a USB drive across the table. This has emails, documents proof of what Livia did to me, and notes from that pitch you helped with. I kept them, thinking I'd confront her one day. But you deserve to know the truth. I stared at the drive, my mind reeling. Livia's cruelty wasn't just personal. It was a pattern, a calculated climb over anyone who threatened her spotlight. Why tell me now? I asked, my voice shaky. Because you're doing something real, Kara said. I read about your program. You're helping people. Livia would never look twice at. I want you to have this, not to destroy her, but to protect yourself. I thanked her, my hands trembling as I pocketed the drive, and left the cafe in a daze, the rain soaking my coat as I processed the weight of her words. That night, I plugged the drive into my laptop, Nora asleep in the next room. The files were damning emails where Livia claimed Kara's work, notes from our late-night pitch sessions with my handwriting scanned in, even a memo where Livia dismissed my contributions as basic admin help. The truth was a bitter pill, but it was also liberating. Livia's success wasn't just built on talent, it was built on erasure. Mine and others. I didn't want revenge, but I knew I'd never let her define me again. Kara's revelations forced me to confront the past with new eyes. I returned to my mentorship program with a fiercer resolve, channeling the pain of Livia's betrayal into purpose. My team expanded, our workshops now serving dozens of women, their stories of struggle and triumph mirroring my own. At home, Nora blossomed, her school projects earning praise, her glitter frames a symbol of our shared resilience. But the USB drive sat in my desk drawer, a silent reminder that closure wasn't just about moving on, it was about claiming my truth. I started therapy, a step I'd avoided for years. My therapist, Dr. Lean, was a no-nonsense woman who saw through my deflections. You've been carrying your family's narrative, she said, her pen tapping her notepad. It's time to write your own. She helped me process Livia's sabotage, Celeste's complicity, and the guilt I'd felt for cutting them off. Boundaries aren't punishment, she said. They're protection. Slowly, I let go of the need for their approval, replacing it with a quiet pride in the life I was building. My relationship with Celeste remained strained, but a tentative olive branch appeared. She invited me to coffee, her voice softer than I'd ever heard. "I didn't understand how much we hurt you," she said, her hands wrapped around a mug. I was wrong to take Livia's side. I listened, my heart guarded but open. "I need time," I said. "But I'm here." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start, a crack in the wall we'd built. Livia, however, remained distant, her silence louder than any apology. Then, a year after the party, a letter arrived, postmarked from Palo Alto. It was from Livia, handwritten, the first direct contact since her text. "Amara," it began. "I've been thinking about that night. I was wrong to mock you, to take you for granted. I'm trying to be better, to own my mistakes. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you're happy." The words felt rehearsed, a performance of remorse, but a postscript caught my eye. I left Nexus, starting fresh, somewhere smaller. "Maybe we can talk someday." I read it twice, searching for sincerity, but finding only echoes of her old manipulation. The USB drive flashed in my mind, its proof of her patterns too heavy to ignore. I showed the letter to Dr. Lin, who suggested I respond not for Livia, but for me. Late that night, I wrote, "Livia, your words hurt more than you'll ever know, but I've built a life beyond them. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I need space. My story isn't yours to shape anymore." I mailed it. The act, a release, a final line drawn. The program's first anniversary brought a celebration, a small event in a community center, with our mentees sharing their stories. Nora stood proudly beside me, her latest frame, a group portrait of our cohort displayed on a table. Marcus attended, his smile warm as he shook my hand. "You've done more than I hoped," he said. "This is just the beginning." Priya was there too, now a senior analyst, her confidence a testament to the community we'd built. One summer evening, Nora and I hiked to a bluff overlooking the Pacific. The ocean, a vast, shimmering promise. She ran ahead, her laughter mingling with the crash of waves, while I carried a backpack with her drawings and a journal I'd started, chronicling our journey, the scars of Livia's cruelty, Celeste's silence, and my own doubts were still there, but they were part of a larger tapestry, woven with love, grit, and triumph. As we sat on the bluff, Nora handed me a new drawing us on a cliff, the sea below, glitter stars above. "For our adventure," she said, her eyes shining. I hugged her, the USB drive, and Livia's letter. Distant memories, and whispered, "This is our story, baby, and it's just getting started." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky gold, and I knew we'd found our light not in applause, but in the life we'd claimed, step by stubborn step.